last night when the Lions were on the clock at 6, I mean, we all pretty much assumed who they would be taking, but we knew also there was a small chance, and we even brought this up on the broadcast, that somebody was going to be willing to trade up. And Brad, that's something that he's going to have to consider. Well, he did. And what he got for the trade as well, I don't hate, again, I'm never a fan of losing control of the draft board, especially in a situation where you're at 6 and the best player, or 1 or 2 best player in this draft is available. Yes, it's a tough pill to swallow, but at the same time, the draft to me, and this is why I wore my, draft the cocaine shirt, because last year the cocaine was Aiden Hutchinson, and we all kind of acknowledged that an edge rusher was preferred. We knew that. This year, number one, this draft as a whole, widely regarded as not a very good draft as it is. So where players go, and looking at different mock drafts, you've seen a lot of different scenarios over the last couple months. And Brad brought that up in his press conference too, because people were asking him, and it's fair because we've done a ton of mock drafts, and Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell were at the best late first-round picks. But then Brad responded to that by saying, listen, I mean, we've done more work than anybody out there doing any mock draft. So I respect Brad and his staff and all the scouts that put in work. And congratulations to Jack Campbell and Jahmyr Gibbs for finally, making it to the NFL and accomplishing their dreams and becoming Detroit Lions. But the Jahmyr Gibbs pick, I was a little skeptical about. And I had to sleep on both of these picks because last night I didn't want to tweet anything emotional. I know people all over on Twitter complaining. I'm not doing that. I wanted to sleep on it, do some more research, just kind of let it sink in a little bit before I get, over the top judgmental. And we talked a lot about this week, last week. It's not where guys go specifically, because you can look back at drafts, and Adam went through them. I mean, there's guys that you're looking and they go in the 20s, and you're like, how did this guy fall? And vice versa. So until we see Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell on the football field making plays, I can't sit up here and say both of these picks were extremely disappointing.
Well, then let me bring you the alternative.
Okay.
Because you're right. Till you see them on the field, maybe it isn't fair. But you know what is fair? Is it fair for me to say I think Jahmyr Gibbs is actually going to be a really good football player on this team?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is it fair for me to say that the best linebacker in the draft coming out that we both had numerous times? And up until last week, what was my concern with Jack Campbell? I didn't think he'd be there at 36, let alone 48. The Jack Campbell pick, I can actually live more within the Jahmyr Gibbs pick. You know how I feel about running backs in the first round. The data doesn't add up. Now, to quote Brad Holmes, he's not your typical running back. We don't see him like Bijan as a bell cow back. Okay, I'm willing to play this game with you guys this morning. But you have to be able to listen to me as much as I'm going to listen to all of you. Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm sure, will probably find the end zone 6-7 times this year. Jahmyr Gibbs, I expect, will be one of your 3 or 4 leading pass catchers this year. I would expect that. And it wouldn't shock me. And I don't hate the player. I don't hate the players at all. But I told you guys Wednesday, especially with this draft, if the Lions were to move back, I had my eyes on guys ranked between 24 and 40 to be selected higher than normal. Did I expect it to? No. And that's why the shock is it's still there with me. But for us to sit up here as a fan base, as media, just in general, and to either poo-poo or any extreme, whether it's on the left or right, negative, positive, I think it's too much. I don't think either is fair. There has to be some common ground here.
Certain, again, I get what you're saying, and a lot of GMs agree with you, but even if you look at the Falcons, they drafted Tyler Algier last year. 5th round pick. And who did they take? Bijan Robinson. Like sometimes talent, especially on each GM's draft board, apparently Jahmyr Gibbs to Brad Holmes was he said it was the highest player on his draft board at 12. So I get what you're saying, but we have to wait and see what even Gibbs can bring to the table.
Because what do you and I agree with all the time on? 4 most important positions in football.
Yes, of course.
Quarterback, offensive lineman, defensive lineman, wide receiver.
When I was making my case for Bijan, I said there are exceptions. Now, Brad might feel like Jahmyr is an exception. He's a first-round talent. And that's where, at this point, I'm going to have to trust Brad on that. Now, you know and you bet that if Jahmyr Gibbs comes out and he doesn't look like the 12th overall pick, I'm going to have a problem with it. But to overreact right now, a day after the draft.
To overreact to what, though?
Jahmyr Gibbs isn't worth the 12th overall pick.
It's not that Jahmyr Gibbs isn't worth the 12th
a running back,
or the first
isn't worth the
overall
12th
pick. It's not about that.
Because Brad brought this up last week as a hint about Todd Gurley. Not saying Jahmyr's Todd Gurley, but what I am saying is Brad said no one questioned why we took Todd at 9 when he was productive and we were having playoff success. So if Jahmyr Gibbs is a big part of this offense, and even brought up too, people brought up, hey, Brad, are you going to be looking at a wide receiver potentially in this draft? And he's like, well, he addressed it. Yes, of course, you want to make sure you especially with Quintez Cephas and Jamison Williams not being there and Stanley Berryhill, all these guys getting suspended. But he brought up Jahmyr Gibbs isn't just a running back. What he can do in the passing game as well, and they're going to have to utilize him that way. I don't mind the picks. I know it's confusing at first, but we have to kind of let Brad paint this whole picture. There's still
that's great.
There's still 6 more rounds left to kind of put this thing together, because they pick at 34. They have 3 picks in the second round. Like, I can't sit here day after the draft and say, man, the Lions botched this one, because you got the second best running back and the best linebacker. So like if you look at it like that. And maybe Brad feels like the drop-off after Jahmyr is significant.
Well, clearly
and
they
maybe
did.
the drop-off after Jack is significant. So they took both their guys, and you're going to have to live with it.
I'm not mad about the players. I'm not going to suggest that Jahmyr Gibbs isn't going to have a phenomenal career in Detroit. That doesn't matter to me. The idea of a running back in the first round has been proven over the last 20 years that it's the wrong choice, whether you guys want to admit it or not.